Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was Fast X, making $9.5 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $128 million and a worldwide total of $603 million. So it continues to be a rough theatrical run for Fast X as the film dropped another 60%. Unfortunately, word of mouth is not doing this movie any favors. It is losing steam. I doubt this is what anyone who worked on this movie wanted to see the outcome for this movie to be. Unfortunately, it's just not doing it right now. In all honesty, I think this movie would be lucky to surpass $150 million domestically, which is a possibility, but given the competition on the horizon, I also have severe doubts about that. So unfortunately, this movie is looking to be a pretty big disappointment domestically. Internationally, again, it is faring much better. It did surpass the $600 million milestone, which is better than nothing. But again, with a $340 million budget, you kind of need a little bit more in order to at least break even. So all around, I think it's safe to say that we have our first big disappointment of the summer. Unfortunately, the budget was just too high and audience interest certainly wasn't there. Sadly, I definitely don't think we are going to get that supposed third part to this finale. I think they're just going to stick with the second part and pretty much end things there. And unfortunately, this may be the last time we see it in the top 5. And unfortunately, it does not end with a bang. Unfortunately, it ends with a bit of a whimper. So yeah, all around a surprisingly pretty big disappointment for Fast X. We'll see if there's any interest in for that second part, but as for this one, it wasn't looking too good. Number 4 was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, making $10 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $323 million and a worldwide total of $780 million. So it is another solid weekend for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It was actually able to get the jump over Fast X, which is quite impressive, and I'm sure Vin Diesel, given that he's in both movies, is very happy with that fact. And another interesting thing was that I read a couple sources saying that many people were expecting this movie to not only get hurt by stiff competition, but straight up plummet this weekend. And I wasn't really too sure about that, so I'm very happy the movie was only able to drop around 49% this weekend. It puts its domestic total just $10 million away from surpassing the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and it puts its worldwide total just $20 million away from surpassing the $800 million milestone, and I think it'll be able to surpass those milestones probably by the end of this week for sure. I'm still a bit hesitant on it surpassing the totals for the second one, but hey, this is still a very solid total, much needed win for Marvel. It is the highest grossing summer movie out right now. We'll see if anything tops that. But yeah, still a very solid total for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Again, there's a lot of competition this month, so we'll see how much steam it has left in the tank, but overall still a very solid total. Number 3 was The Boogeyman, opening with $12 million domestically this weekend and $20 million worldwide. This is the 4th biggest opening weekend for a horror movie this year, topping The Pope's Exorcist, but sitting behind Evil Dead Rise, Megan, and Scream 6. So yeah, I was a bit surprised by this opening weekend. I thought it would do a little bit better given how strong horror is right now. And don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad start. The movie only costed $35 million and it's made a good sum of that back worldwide, so it's sure to make that money back for sure, and I wouldn't even be surprised to see it double that worldwide, maybe even domestically, given that it's the only major horror movie out right now. And if it's able to leg out like Evil Dead Rise, I could see this being a sleeper hit. But I thought there was a bit more interest in this than I expected, again, given the solid marketing. I saw a lot of promo for this and I thought they were really pushing it, but no, I guess the audience interest wasn't as big as I thought it would be. Add on to the fact that the cinema score is a B-, which isn't that bad for a horror movie, but still we'll see if it plummets this coming weekend or is able to pull off what other horror movies did, like Megan and Evil Dead Rise and hold better than expected. So yeah, a very interesting weekend for The Boogeyman. We'll see where it goes. Maybe it'll leg out, be a sleeper hit, and continue this strong trend for horror, or it'll plummet and end up like The Pope's Exorcist. Who knows? But yeah, I don't think this is a bad opening, but at least in my opinion, I was expecting just a little bit more. Number 2 was The Little Mermaid, making $41 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $186 million and a worldwide total of $327 million. So I think, as was to be expected for this movie, it did face a steep drop-off, especially for a family film, dropping 57%. Obviously, it faced stiff competition that we will get to in a moment. But I also think this was probably the best case scenario for them. The fact that it was still able to get over $40 million this weekend is quite admirable. It does show that word of mouth is doing its job domestically. It's sure to surpass the $200 million milestone pretty soon domestically and continue to strive on domestically. You may notice that I'm repeating domestically a lot because it's doing very well stateside, but around the world it is suffering majorly. It is not picking up slack. Unfortunately, I just don't think the international audiences are just gelling with this movie, sadly, and it's hurting the movie quite a bit. It should get to 400 million worldwide in the coming weeks, and maybe even 500 million, but I don't think that's the total Disney wanted for this, especially with the huge budget this has. $250 million. Gadzooks. That's probably what's really hurting this movie out right now. So again, like Fast X, we are seeing two very different stories in terms of markets right now. Domestically, it's killing it right now. It's doing fairly well for itself, but internationally, it's not doing any favors. We'll see if the movie continues this trend, if the movie continues to pick up the pace domestically but slow down internationally, or maybe some other foreign markets start to really like this movie and maybe help the international totals up a bit. Maybe we'll just see. But right now, very interesting weekend for The Little Mermaid. Definitely has a very interesting box office story for itself. Going to be interesting to see if this movie gets to where it needs to or ends up disappointing. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, which was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, opening with $120 million this weekend domestically and $208 million worldwide. So let's break this down. First, it is of course the second biggest opening weekend for a family or animated film this year, behind the Super Mario Bros. Movie, but topping The Little Mermaid. It is the biggest opening weekend for a comic book movie this year, topping Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods. It is the biggest opening weekend of the summer, topping Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, The Little Mermaid, Fast X, and The Boogeyman. The second biggest opening weekend of the year, behind the Super Mario Bros. Movie, but topping Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and The Little Mermaid. And it is also the third biggest opening weekend for any Spider-Man movie ever, topping Spider-Man Homecoming and the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, but sitting behind Spider-Man 3 and Spider-Man No Way Home. So yeah, as to be expected, the movie majorly increased from the $35 million opening of the first film, but I don't think it was expected that this new film would make a large majority of what the first film did in its entire theatrical run in just its first 3 days. The fact that it's made already this much money shows how the audience and the fan base for the predecessor grew ever since that movie came out, and the buzz was just super strong. I think they really nailed it here. There was just so much hype and anticipation for this movie, and I definitely had a feeling it was going to be very unexpected and very surprising with this opening weekend. Add on to the fact that the movie only costed $100 million and is already doubled that worldwide. This movie is already headed into the right direction. I'm sure this movie is going to be a massive hit. Audiences are clearly loving it. It got an A Cinema Score rating, and ever since the movie came out, I have been hearing nothing but positive reception from pretty much everyone I know who have seen this movie. So I think this movie might be able to pull off what Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 did and just exceed expectations and be an incredibly strong run with solid legs. Of course, this movie is facing off against much more stiff competition than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, especially with the fact that 2 weeks from now, not only is it facing against a new comic book movie, but also a new animated movie. So we'll see how this faces off those competitors. But even if so, the word of mouth and the audience reception from pretty much everyone is just so strong and so positive. I can see this movie just exceeding all expectations in terms of legs and hold. So yeah, this is a great start to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I am very looking forward to seeing how much further this movie can go in the coming weeks. But yeah, as far as its opening, this is a great start and already a huge success. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet as we got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And this weekend we only have one new major wide release, that film being Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. This is a reboot or prequel of the Transformers franchise, and I'm going to be honest, I think this is one of the first major wild cards of the summer movie season. There is buzz and there is interest. I do hear and see people talking about this movie frequently. The trailer certainly grabbed a lot of attention from people, but the marketing I thought would be a bit better than what it is. I mean, sure, there have been some interesting publicity stunts. Optimus Prime made an appearance at the Kids' Choice Awards and, of all places, Coachella, and I'm definitely seeing promos and advertising for it, but I don't feel like they're promoting this as big or as much as they should be, given how this was their major summer franchise for Paramount a couple years ago. Granted, that has since died down with how The Last Night did, so maybe they're being a bit more hesitant on the marketing. But yeah, I'm just not seeing it with the marketing here. I'm not sure if they're really grabbing the buzz or the interest from audiences, unfortunately. And with how big of a success Spider-Man is, I feel like that's going to be more competition for Transformers than Transformers is going to be for Spider-Man. But I don't know. It could exceed expectations. It could do better than expected. But I'm gonna be a bit hesitant towards this. So yeah, a bit of a wild card here. But we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied? Unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all those social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.